The most famous serial killer in history technically does not exist. We have no confirmed name, no face, and no record of a formal trial. The only concrete boundaries of the story are the claustrophobic and grim streets of London's East End during the late 19th century. Between August and November of 1888, the killer targeted 5 specific women: Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Collectively, they are known as the Canonical Five. Then, the violence simply stopped. The Metropolitan Police were left with a cold case, having failed entirely to identify or capture a culprit before the trail went silent. Humans rely on narrative closure to process trauma and history. When a story provides a beginning and a middle, but denies us a resolution, the brain struggles to archive the event. Because the case never reached a legal or narrative conclusion, it remained an open-ended question that the public felt an ongoing collective pressure to answer. As the investigation stalled, the focus shifted from the physical streets to the chaotic atmosphere inside the police stations and newsrooms. This is the From Hell letter, part of a wave of mysterious correspondence sent to authorities to mock the investigation. Signed Jack the Ripper, these letters gave the killer a specific persona the press packaged and sold to a terrified audience. The correspondence transformed a local murderer into a media-driven phantom, a figure that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. By turning the investigation into a public spectacle, these letters humiliated the police and forced the public to step in and solve the mystery themselves. This amateur surge created Ripperology, a dedicated discipline focused on deciphering the killer's identity through the study of historical records. Because the factual evidence is so sparse, investigators can use the same data points to build dozens of conflicting theories. This network shows the result: a central, empty identity that branches out into a massive web of competing suspects. These nodes represent everyone from local butchers to surgeons and even members of the royal family. This reveals the structural flaw of the case. Because there is no primary suspect to act as an anchor, any figure from the era can be retrofitted to match the vacuum of evidence. Ripperology became a self-sustaining cycle. The inability to definitively disprove any one theory means the public debate can never reach a natural end. We are now more than a century removed from the autumn of 1888. The Whitechapel murders are no longer an active police matter, but an institutionalized fixture of historical study and public fascination. If the killer had been caught and executed in 1888, his name would likely be a forgotten detail in a Victorian ledger. The story would have been contained. By merging a sensationalized media cycle with the birth of amateur forensics, the case established the specific patterns we see in modern true crime coverage and internet sleuthing. The killer's permanent anonymity acts as a mirror. It allows each new generation to project its own fears and societal anxieties onto a blank slate. The details of the crimes are gruesome, but the lack of an ending is what creates the obsession. A monster with a name can be understood, but a monster with no face is immortal.